Bienvenidos and welcome everyone to our next event of Latinx Heritage Month. Thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Before we begin, I want to remind all attendees to please sign into the link provided in the chat by David. If you have any issues with the sign-in, please direct message David. If you have any questions during the course of the presentation, please direct them to Jamie and we will address them at the conclusion of the presentation during the Q&A. Also, a short survey will be shared in the chat by David toward the end of the event, so please make sure to take a couple minutes to complete the survey before you leave. We have ASL interpretation services by Mara and closed captioning provided by Courtney. You can enable closed captioning by selecting live transcript and enabling captions. Thank you for being here. Lastly, this is a reminder that this event will be recorded, so please adjust your settings to your preference. Before I introduce today's panelists, I want to offer a land acknowledgement on behalf of the Planning Committee. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will, some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations that can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truths. We are currently occupying ancestral land of the Tongva people. In our work to promote social justice and education, we must always consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. With that being said, I'd like to welcome you all to this evening's presentation for Latinx Heritage Month 2021. This is Glendale Community College's second year observing Latinx Heritage Month, and our theme for this year is celebrating our diverse stories, voices, and identities. The Planning Committee selected this theme to celebrate the unique individuals within the Latinx community, despite the various challenges they have faced in this country. And with that being said, lastly, it is an honor to introduce our wonderful panelists for today's Latinx Student Panel. We have Tania Acosta, Rebecca Garcia, and Francisco Bello. Welcome to our Latinx Student Panel. We will be having our four panelists being spotlighted in a second. And I want to thank them all first for being here. So Rebecca, Francisco, Tania, thank you for dedicating this hour to share your experience as Latinx students, specifically as Latinx Glendale students. So I want to start off by asking you all to introduce yourselves. And when you do introduce yourselves, can you also let us know how you identify? Do you identify as Hispanic, Latino, Latina, Latin, Latinx, anything other than that? So just introduce yourselves and let us know how you identify.
I'll start with me. Hi, I'm Tania Acosta, and I identify myself as Latina.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Francisco Bello, and I identify as Latino primarily.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Garcia, and I identify as Latina.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing how you identify. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got to Glendale, how you got to your journey here, and a little bit about your experience as a Latinx student? And you can go in whichever order you would like as well.
Oh, well, I'll start. I started at GCC in 2014, maybe 15. And my ambition was to always go to school, get a degree, but I got married way too young and I had kids at a very young age. And it was very hard for me to get back to school. So I decided to wait until they grew up and became adults. So I've been working, taking a class. I was taking a class per semester. And then I just got really like, I needed to get through so many credits and classes. And I decided to take 2-3 classes per semester. it was really hard. I really wouldn't want to do that again because I was really under a lot of stress. And I'm very actually very grateful to become part of the community, La Comunidad, because I feel like I've been getting enough support, and that's why I've been with the community for a few years now. So yeah, I came from Nicaragua when I was 14 years old. So it was really hard for me to complete school because I made the choice to get married young. So, but I'm almost done. I have 2 more classes to complete to get my degree. It's been very challenging, but I'm very excited that I'm almost here. Thank you.
Thank you for
Nice,
sharing that.
nicely said. So I guess I'll go next if that's okay. So my academic journey at GCC actually began in 1996. I did progress. I was young, I was dumb. I started putting together a lot of plans. I got pulled away for financial reasons. I initially my first attempt at academia, I got as far as CSUN by California State University Northridge by 2001. And ultimately, life had its little twists and turns. I always appreciated education and ultimately came back to it. In 2017, I came back to GCC again because I wanted to basically brush up on things. I was reapplying to Cal State Northridge to finish my degree there. And GCC was comforting. I already knew the school. I'm so old, I took classes with Dr. Davitt, if you know who that is. I was seeking a business degree. So I came over here basically because I already knew the campus. So I already knew what was going on here. Ultimately transferred back to Cal State Northridge, got my bachelor's in history. I actually just found out yesterday I had accumulated enough points or credits to get my business administration degree here at GCC, which is what brought me back. It's a long, convoluted story, and this meeting is about La Comunidad. But if I tell you all the details, we'll be listening to just me for the rest of the afternoon. So I came back over here. I love participating in things that help promote La Comunidad, not just our group, but in general, the Latino culture. If you haven't noticed, I'm tend to be an extrovert. I'm not shy by any stretch of the imagination. So I like to make sure that people that might not be so forward or confident in asking questions and stuff, I always love bringing stuff to them. It creates a more enriching feeling. I mean, it goes beyond Latino culture too. I love it because that's what I am. I was born here, but my parents were very old fashioned. Like I couldn't speak English until I was 5, and I was born here. Like I grew up doing my homework in English and Spanish because they wanted to make sure that culture just stayed in there. But I love what you guys are doing here. I am looking forward to being a bigger part of it.
Thank you so much, Francisco. Beautifully said. And then we have Rebecca.
So it's actually my first year of college. I graduated in 2021. Like it was a small ceremony, but I decided I wanted to come to GCC partially because of money reasons. we didn't have enough to afford like big universities, and their tuition, it was too much. But as I came here, I did dual enrollment during my senior year of high school, but I got contacted by Student Equity, and I felt really welcomed. And especially because, I mean, unlike Francisco, I'm really, really shy. I don't really like doing this kind of thing, but I thought it would be a good thing to do and just get out there. So Student Equity has helped me like come out of my shell a lot. So, I mean, I'm studying for film. I want to become a director. And I think that GCC so far has really been helping me. I've been learning a lot, and I feel very, very welcomed on the campus.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Rebecca. I know Rebecca touched on it a little bit, but can you all talk about a little bit about your goals at GCC and kind of your goals after GCC as well, if you have an idea?
Any of us, or all of us, or?
Yeah, any or all.
Okay. I'm getting a little long in the tooth, meaning I'm getting older, so I can't do everything that I used to do. I've done a lot of different things in my life. I'm looking to teach, actually. I want to teach history, basically because history gets a bad rap. A lot of people don't understand that history is meant to be like the story of us, the story of all of us, and you have to do it from an enthusiastic point. Otherwise, people won't realize the impact that it has on all of our lives. But that's where my trajectory is, teaching.
For me, I'm not really sure yet. My goal is to finish a GCC. I will apply for schools, and I have a whole year to think about where I want to go. But at least I got to my goal that I've been working for 5-6 years, and I feel like it's not enough, but at least it's satisfying.
Definitely. And it's okay not to know, right? I'm sure a lot of students feel the same way you do, Tanya, where we're all trying to figure it out, right? So that's totally okay. But thank you for sharing a little bit about kind of your goals in terms of your education. Can you all share a little bit about what it means for you to, a lot of you mentioned that, identify as Latina or Latino, what it means for you to be part of the Latina community in the US, and what has your experience been like navigating that identity?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So I grew up in La Crescenta, and it's a really predominantly white neighborhood for me. So I actually don't know how to speak Spanish. And to me, I kind of just feel a little lost. Whereas like I feel too Hispanic or Latino for the white kids, but too white for the like Hispanic and Latino kids. So I'm kind of in between, and I don't really know what to do. But when I'm with my family, I feel more like myself and stuff. But it's kind of it's hard, but it's not.
I guess for me, I always felt like I blended with different people. Like I always, when I came from Nicaragua, I moved to Hollywood, and from Hollywood to Glendale. So I got to meet a lot of, white, Asians, Armenians. So I really felt, I don't know, like I never felt being part of, just one, race. I don't know, but it was really nice to blend with different people, because I had a group of people in high school that we used to hang out at 15, 16, and you had like whites, blacks, Latinos. So I don't know. It's just being I don't know. It was very, I felt honored to say, you know, I'm Latina between all these people. So yeah, um, that was my experience growing up in this country. So
Yeah, so my experience has been all over the board. I've been working since I was 8 years old, and so entering the cultures. There was a lot of nuances, especially on the west side. Somehow, even though I applied for jobs everywhere, I'd always wind up getting jobs on the west side, almost to this day. Um, there was always these preconceived notions that because I was Latino, I never did anything really to hide it. I mean, I don't think so, but I could speak Spanish fluently. Like I said, English. I had English. I went to my family's originally from Colombia, so we went over there one summer and we stayed for a few months. It was kind of funny because when I came back, I couldn't speak English without an accent, even though I'd never had one before. But I mean, I've had all kinds of bad experiences. Like, unfortunately, I lived before the age of the camera phone. I could tell you about my adventures with the police department, always matching the description, regardless of what I was doing. I mean, I have stories. I have stories of Bond stories. But any job I had, there's always been like the last job I had before I formally returned to school full time. I was a property manager. I was a property superintendent. So I ran 14 properties. I was responsible for day-to-day operations. I worked for this family. Uh, uh, one, well, without giving names, one was a lawyer. The other one's a doctor. Nice old Jewish family, nice couple, but they always had this look like. And one day the husband even told me, he's like, "You're really smart for somebody that works with their hands." Like it was shocking that I could have a contractor's license and talk about ancient Greece, and somehow that was like some big thing, or explain to them about Vasconcelos and the cosmic race, or pick. I mean, like my specialty in history is Borderlands history, and that's a whole different powder cake. Again, all kinds of points. If you guys want to ask me questions about it, feel free, but I don't want to take up too much time. But I've seen the worst of the worst and the best of the best in my experiences being Latino. Some places are just, and we still have a long way to go. I mean, I've lived long enough where I can see where the improvements are, but I can also tell you that there's still stuff in the shadows. But being aware of it is more important than not.
Definitely. Thank you all for sharing. So I think one of the things that I really noticed when you all were talking is kind of the differences between each of your stories, right? So all being part of the same community, but the diversity within that, right? So Rebecca, you kind of talked a little bit about not knowing Spanish, right? And Francisco talks about growing up with Spanish. And Tanya has a little bit different story in that she migrated from Nicaragua, right? So that's something that's really important to highlight within the community, right? Because like Francisco touched upon, we're all kind of seen in one particular way and stereotyped in that way, right? Which isn't always great. Can you all kind of talk about, and Rebecca touched on it a little bit, within your Latinx or Latina experience, what has been like to kind of interact with people and observe how people react to you when they find out you're Latino, Latina, and what it really means to you, and how it affects your identity, if it has at all. Because you all touched a little bit on different parts of being Latino, Latina, that I think it would really be important to kind of talk a little bit about how those differences really have impacted the way you see yourself as Latino or Latina. But I'll let you all kind of talk about those experiences if you want to, and if you're open to sharing what impact that's had on your identity over time.
I can go first. So,
Okay.
I mean, during one thing that kind of just like always stood out to me, it was an experience that I had in middle school. So it was the day after the 2016 election, and one of my classmates who I knew for a long time, and I thought we were, really good friends and something. He came up to me and he was like, well, now that, Donald Trump is elected, you're an illegal immigrant, so you have to go back to your country. And I was like, but I can't even speak Spanish, and I don't really feel, I was like, I'm not as like Hispanic as my mom, I don't really know much about my culture because I was in a very whitewashed area. And I felt really like angry and confused. But I mean, that's, to me, that was like most of my life where I was the only Hispanic somewhere, but I felt like I wasn't Hispanic enough to be there. So I was always kind of like outcast everywhere.
Hmm. It's okay, Tanya, I'll go if that's all right. Um, it's interesting when you touch off on that because it's like, so yeah, like I said, I'm fluent in Spanish. I was born here, but my father always wanted to just, I used to have to do my homework in English and Spanish. That was not an option. It embedded a lot of the culture in me, but one thing I've learned throughout my life is truly don't judge a book by its cover. I mean, my oldest best friend was black. My first girlfriend was Filipino. I've had dozens, hundreds, thousands. I don't count. I don't keep track of ethnicity either. So I was always proud of who I was, but I never felt the need to always be just with my community, with my culture. I mean, my culture is everything. My family's lineage reads like Heinz 57 ingredients. If you guys have ever read the back of a Heinz 57 bottle, you can see like it's diverse. I mean, like that's why I said initially I'm primarily Latino, but my lineage falls everywhere. So I don't know if maybe that skewed my perspective. I mean, really, the sun doesn't set on my family. I've got family throughout the world. We used to have big family get-togethers until, well, and then that kind of messed things up. But I've dealt with racism. It just became, I hate to say it, but it kind of almost normal to the point where apathy ensued. So I wasn't like enraged. It's like, oh, that guy's like that. Okay. And then just adjusted accordingly. I mean, I've worked jobs where honestly, the people that I worked with, they had their little white pointed hats tucked in their back pocket. And that's not even an exaggeration. I used to work as a miner for a few years, another long story, but even they understood the dynamics there where, there were certain situations where people just kind of had to blend. It wasn't an option. It was it was a way of life because you could lose your life in a minute given the dangers, not from racism but from the job itself. But I've also dealt with beautiful people, so that again, not keeping track of ethnicities. So to me, it broadens my perspective. Being a historian, I love the fact that I can see how Latino Spanish influence is so embedded into North America. People don't realize just how much it is. I always love bringing that up. Sorry. But the experiences, they vary. I mean, there's no single like always catch all falls into one category kind of thing. So it basically, I would say, always keep an open mind.
Tanya, I think you're muted. There you go.
Thank you, Francisco. I I agree with you. That's been my experience, where uh, I want to say people in general are, some people are racist, and I had it from different people, different races, and to me, it doesn't really bother me, because not just being Latino or any other race, as a person, I feel very confident for who I am, and the values that I have to share with my community and the world means more than just a stupid comment from someone that really doesn't value the values I have, for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing. I know it must be really hard to experience those situations that obviously are not deserving of anyone. Rebecca kind of touched a little bit about this idea on not being from here, but also not being from there, right? And sometimes we hear it as ni de aquí, ni de allá, not from here, not from there, right? And you all talked a little bit about those challenges about being Latino or Latina or Latinx in the United States. But I'm also curious, what are some of the things that have been successes or that you really love about being a part of this community?
All right, I guess I'll start. So in my time, I've owned businesses. I've worked a lot of jobs. I've worked as a bank. I've worked at Corporate Bank of America as a senior specialized services rep. I've worked in casinos as um, a special events and promotions coordinator. I grew up with surrogate uncles. My father thought much like I do about ethnicity. We intermingled with everybody. My Armenian uncle was a plumber. My Black uncle was a painter. My I think he was Slovakian. Uncle was an electrician. So the minor part was I worked as a heavy equipment operator. So all the Tonka toys, yep, I got to use them. I've gotten to do a lot of things. I went back to school basically to reinvent myself. Like Tanya was just mentioning a few minutes ago, and hope she knows you have a lot of time to rethink. I mean, I can honestly vouch that I've reinvented myself at least. I'm on my fifth time at trying something new, not because I failed, but because it's like I went as far as I thought I needed to go in this career. Like I did corporate banking for like 5 years, and I realized I don't want to do this the rest of my life. I did special events and promotions. I grew up working in hotels. That was my primary job. Loved dealing with people. Shocker, extrovert. And I like that. I work, one of my side jobs right now, I work as a floor manager for Comic-Con International. So Comic-Con International, most people don't know, is actually a nonprofit organization that is built on the promotion of reading. They started small and just in San Diego, and it blew up, but now Comic-Con has become something massive. WonderCon is also huge, but again, dealing with people. So I lean towards my successes. I mean, even with teaching, I have I've already got 2 of the 3 real credentials that I need for it. I'm working on that too. It's that's why in the Marine Corps they teach you never retreat. You just fight in another direction. Sometimes things don't, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to be part of the community. La Comunidad is sometimes things don't work out. You don't need to push a bad position. You can fight in another direction and achieve a different goal or achieve multiple goals. But I mean that's the success in my life. I can say is that you never quit. You don't have to quit. You only quit if you stop trying. As long as you keep trying, you are still getting ahead. But that's my successes.
So for me, all through school, like when someone usually it would be teachers. They would ask me like, oh, what is your ethnicity? And I would like say I'm Mexican and Guatemalan, and the stuff that I did learn from my parents that they were able to like share with me and I retained, I would share it with them. They would be very like intrigued by it, and I was very happy that someone was excited to learn about where I came from, or where my parents were from. And I would get awards during school for having high grades. During my senior year, I got a medal because I had a 3.0 or higher GPA, and it was for Latinx students. And I was just really proud, and it made me feel proud because my mom would always like talk about, she's like, I'm so glad that you're still going forward with your education, and that you're still trying to succeed in life, and I'm very proud of you for that. And when I got my first job like about a month ago, like all of the people who worked I work at a bakery, so all the bakers in the back who are Hispanic or Latin, I would just talk to them, and they would talk to me like I was an equal, not as if it was like lower, as if I was like lesser than. So it would be really nice to like talk with someone who like knew where I was coming from and had the same culture I did. So me personally, I would consider that a success for me.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing what that kind of means, being a success of being part of the Latinx community. You kind of touched a little bit earlier on being part of GCC's La Comunidad. Can you all talk a little bit about how you found out about being part of La Comunidad and what your experience has been like being either involved in La Comunidad or any activities or extracurriculars at GCC?
All right, so I attended that Zoom we had last night with Dr. Del Real. That was awesome. That was great. I definitely, if for no other reason, I found out about La Comunidad because where was it? It was posted. It was posted everywhere. I think I saw it somewhere on my way to the bookstore, or I saw it online. But so far, I've only really dealt with Kevin, but he's great, and yeah, Dr. Jose is the best. He really. I have to send him an email. I have stories to tell him. I have questions that I have for him too. I think I will be asking for his advice really soon. Um, I had been mulling over whether I was going to go for a PhD or not because it's a big decision. Right now, I'm in the middle of a master's program. It's a multidisciplinary master's, but I have questions for him regarding all that stuff. So if for no other reason, just that one connection was awesome, and the semester's just really started. So I look forward to like the other stuff, the other functions we're gonna have. So that's me. I'm very grateful for you guys.
So it was my senior year of high school, and it was after winter break, and one of my close teachers that I'm still friends with now, she told me that I should take a dual enrollment class to kind of cover college classes, so I wouldn't have to take as many when I actually was fully enrolled. And I was signing up for all the things, and then I got an email saying that I should join Student Equity or La Comunidad. And I was like, you know what, I don't put myself out there enough, and I'm very shy about things, but maybe this, like, now that I'm going to college, I should just put myself out there and just go for it. So I did. And when I was like, oh, they're like, oh, you got in, I was like, oh, nice. And I saw all the services that they offered, and it actually really helped me kind of grow up a little more, and kind of be more adult about things now that I'm gonna be 18. So because of the one-on-one sessions that I had, I've gotten a lot of just support, and it's like throughout my education, I know what I'm doing, and I know like my goals, and it's really been very helpful.
I'm so happy that you're feeling like you're having the courage to branch out, Rebecca. It's not easy by any means to put ourselves out there, but I'm really proud of you for doing that. You all talked a little bit about La Comunidad and and the way it supported you. What are some of the challenges you feel like you faced as a student? And what, looking back on some of those challenges, what do you, if you had like a piece of advice for other students at GCC, what would you kind of tell them as you're navigating your own GCC experience?
I was just checking to see if Rebecca wanted to go first. I keep going first. No? No, okay. My first and foremost, my mantra almost is don't quit. Just don't take no as an answer. Even some of you are going to take classes that you don't do well in, or even, the F word, and don't let that stop you. You can always take that class again. You can always look in another direction. There's some people that are blessed and they know, or they've figured out how they're going to go. And then there's some of us that even with guidance, you have doubts. It's the river that you're find yourself in right now is not necessarily straight. It's usually meandering. There's things in life that happen there. Don't let that stop you, and don't let other people tell you when you should stop. Like, oh, you should go for a PhD. If you want to, if you feel that that's what drives you, that's what you need to do. But never be afraid to question your course. You can always make adjustments. It's never too late. Look, I'm old and I'm still making adjustments, but it's enjoy it too while it goes. Have fun. Don't look at it as a grind, because if you look at it as a grind, it may not stick as well as it should, and that's just never a good thing. If you're not enjoying yourself, then you need to make adjustments.
So I mean, I would say I'm kind of like a mediocre student. I do good, but I kind of struggle a lot. But I guess advice wise, I would just kind of push through it. I'm not really sure because I feel like I haven't experienced enough where it'd be advice wise. But I would say just if you don't think that you're going to like do good in something, just try it out. I mean, I'm starting college and I don't think that I would have done as much as I have been doing if someone wasn't there to push me, or I kind of mustered up the courage and I was like, okay, I have to do this. So I think just pushing through it.
Yeah, and then I think you both touched a little bit about, getting that help too, right? When you are struggling with something, you go to La Comunidad, there's somebody that you know on campus. So I think it's really helpful that students know that there are these support services for them as well. So I'm gonna push it off to questions from the audience. So I think we have a couple, and I'll allow Jamie to kind of let us know what those questions are.
Thank you. So this question is open to both of you. So other than La Comunidad, have you been involved in other programs offered at GCC? And if so, what programs and how they help you with your growth as a student?
Okay, sorry. So I actually really haven't been involved in anything, but I want to like look online and see what else there is to offer, because I do feel very welcome at GCC. So I want to put myself out there and, experience as much as I can.
So the last time, this is my first semester back for a while. Back in 2018, I was tutoring accounting, when I was taking financial accounting and macroeconomics. So, you know, I've always been that guy that winds up training everybody at whatever job I wound up doing. So it just comes naturally. I haven't had a chance to really delve into your programs. That's the whole reason for my signing up to La Comunidad. I thought it would be a great fit. In the past, I've also worked as a history ambassador, which was basically La Comunidad, but just for the, well, not just the Latinos, just for the history students that were, but that was at CSUN.
Thank you, Francisco and Rebecca. This question is actually directed at you, Francisco. So, and unfortunately, Tanya left, so I'm going to go ahead and ask this for you, Francisco. And they ask, so please discuss how much it helps your resilience to be in a place like Southern California, where there's an abundance of Latino culture. So does this community help you find strength in face of racism or discrimination? What advice would you give to Latinos living in places that are not like LA?
Basically, that's interesting. That's a good question. I've lived in 6 states and 2 countries, and I grew up in LA. I was born in Hollywood. I ultimately came back here back in 2007. One of the reasons why I came back that drove me back here was no place that I lived had such a sense of comunidad, of community, and not just Latino community, but like just the whole mix. Like, you know, you in grade school, you hear about the great American melting pot, but when you're living in Utah or Washington or Texas or Idaho, there's still a lot of even, well, it's not discrimination, it's just isolation, like people still kind of segregate themselves. And one thing I loved about Southern California is, yeah, we have a massive Latino presence. Honest to God, I wonder why in all the southern western, the Southwest, why we don't have like every political position sewed in. I mean, there's a lot of Latinos. There should be organization to make that happen. But in Southern California, we're proud of who we are, and we still intermingle with everybody else, a lot of us. I think that's a strength. I see that as a strength. I mean, honestly, that my advice with that is, when you're living in, or you're in a place that is unfamiliar or is unfriendly, and you're feeling like a pilgrim in an unholy land, then it definitely, you want to keep your head on a swivel. You want to be polite, you know, basically size people up. Again, you know, books and covers, that really does work. You know, everybody that may look one way or say something, just it doesn't have to be a bad experience. Just mind your P's and just make sure that you negotiate the situation depending on what it is. It's complicated, to say the least, because there's social norms. I mean, there's class systems. One thing I learned from living in a lot of states is we tend to suggest that we don't have a class system in the US, and that's not necessarily so. So that's another thing to be mindful of. But generally, always be safe, but be open-minded enough to accept help if it's given, regardless of who's giving it, depending on the situation. Again, it's one of those things where it's situational. I mean, be open-minded and just be alert. That would be my best advice for that.
Thank you, Francisco. This question is actually for you, Rebecca. So Rebecca, you mentioned that you don't speak Spanish. Do you think that this has an impact on how you feel culturally as a Latina? And they're asking because they feel that language is a big part of culture.
Yes, really, like, in all honesty, it does. I actually tried sophomore and junior or freshman and sophomore year to join like a Spanish class and stuff, but it was mainly kids who didn't want to be there but had to fill it out for an elective. So I was like me trying to like actually learn because I didn't know how to speak Spanish and I couldn't communicate with my family members who, you know, don't know how to speak English. I was lost and I failed the class both times and I just kind of gave up because I was like, well, I live in La Crescenta, so I don't necessarily need to know how to speak Spanish because it's predominantly white people. So, and when I go to like family outings or like parties and stuff, and they're trying to talk to me in Spanish and I don't understand, I get kind of made fun of there too, where they're like, you don't know how to speak Spanish. And it's just like, no one taught me. And when I tried, people around me weren't very motivating or encouraging. So I didn't care for it anymore. So most of the times I don't really feel like I am Hispanic. I feel more like whitewashed, like I don't know my culture. But like for the past year or so, I've been trying to just do my own research, you know, just look at articles and pictures and go to places where it's predominantly Hispanic or Latin and just kind of immerse myself. So I think, I mean, from 5 years ago, I would say that I've learned a lot more, but I'm still very much learning. But hopefully I can start Spanish lessons because I actually do want to start, you know, speaking my own language because I think it is a big barrier that separates me from my own family as well as the rest of the people.
Thank you, Rebecca, for your transparent answer. Thank you so much for that. We do have a couple more questions, and this one is for both of you. How do you feel about returning to campus for face-to-face classes and services?
Wow. So as long as all the necessary precautions are being taken into account, you know, social distancing, you know, 6 feet rule or whatever they determined. And as far as masks, I've never understood why the masks became political. I mean, it's science, it's safety issue. I don't have a problem with it. Um, I like the freedom of online classes, but honest to God, I went back to a brick and mortar because I I didn't I didn't feel that I was learning as much with online classes. Where humans are social creatures. We like to interact with people, me more so. Um, there's something that's missed when you don't have that classroom environment, and you know, and Pronto or even Zoom sometimes it can jam up when everybody wants to talk at the same time. It pixelates or it freezes. It disrupts the learning, and I honestly do not believe that and this applies to any age level, not just the younger or the older or anything. We don't pay as much attention if we're online. There's too many distractions that go on. So I think it's almost a disservice to us in overall learning, you know, quality of learning. But with that said, I don't have a problem going back into the classroom.
So for me, I actually benefited a lot from everything kind of being online. Even during high school, I was telling my mom, I was like, I don't really like being in person because I am such an introverted person. I don't like talking to people. I don't like just interacting in general. So when everything was kind of moved to online, I started getting straight A's in all my classes and I started learning more and like retaining all the information that I was learning. So even now during my first year, I think I'm doing better than I would have imagined if it wasn't like if it was in person, because now in college I'm going to be on my own, that I have to look out for myself, and it's not like in high school where people are actively coming up to me and being like, you forgot this, or like, remember this. I have to look out for myself. So I think online kind of has benefited me more than I could have imagined.
And we do have time for one more question, I believe, Priscilla. So this is a comment, and this is also a question that can go for anyone who feels comfortable. But they're sharing with us, I'm not a Latino person, but I am an Asian person. And I have to, and I wanted to ask if you have heard about the discrimination of Asians during the COVID-19 pandemic in general. Since we spoke about racism in this meeting, I also wanted to share something that's been hurtful to me. No one discriminated me personally, but I feel bad for other Asians that were discriminated against.
During my school, there's like a large population of Asian people, and people were being very rude and just saying hurtful things. And I kind of was talking about it with some of my friends who were Asian, and like it really impacted them. And I could see, because like you see it on the news, and it's horrible. It's all the comments, and like people get violent and stuff, and you don't want that to happen, but it's how it is, and it sucks because it shouldn't be like that. But it's very, very bad, especially since none of it is anyone's fault.
Yeah, so a lot of us, I don't know if a lot of us, some of us are taking advantage of CalWorks and the GAIN program. And because of the GAIN program, I wound up working in voter registration, working for LA County. Like I was one of the people that was doing the ballots for the presidential election. And reason why this comes to mind is so in the midst of COVID, you know how you make friends at work. So I made really good friends with a girl named Wisu. Wisu was she was Chinese. She immigrated, so she just spoke a little bit of English, but she spoke better than she thought she did. But the job was like 9 months. I noticed after a while that people were being mean to her basically just because they thought that they could get away with it. I hate that. I hate discrimination in any fashion, any ethnicity. I and being extroverted, I tend to have a mouth about it. Not a temper, mind you, but more of a strategic surgical strike kind of thing. I basically would get her to stand up for herself. I couldn't understand, I can't fathom that in this day and age, people are still so small-minded that they let the people that said the things that they did and didn't even quantify how ridiculous that sounded. I mean, the whole COVID thing just brought to the surface, I think, this discrimination or hate for Asians that shouldn't exist in any way, shape, or form, especially in California. You know the history, just a brief history of California between the Japanese and the Chinese. They basically built California to where it is now. Well, obviously the Latinos too, but we're already here, so that they came from the exterior. But it was those three minorities that basically made the state what it is. And I could bore you to tears with historical data if you really wanted it, but it's just horrible. I don't tolerate it. I stamp it out wherever I see it. But yet another reason for these groups, which is great, and not just La Comunidad, but all the culture groups here, is that it forms an awareness, and to the people that aren't even in the group, it can create awareness. I still think that a lot of the hate is just a result of ignorance, people listening to people that they think they know what they're talking about, and really they're just promoting whatever hate they've heard from somewhere else. So I mean, that's yet another reason to be thankful for these kind of groups, like Comunidad.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I think, you all bring up really valid points on how a lot of these communities of color experience, while different maybe, but they all experience some type of discrimination or racism that is completely unacceptable. But what it does do is it helps us bring more awareness, as you talk about, Francisco, but also it empowers our community to not only learn from one another, but to hold each other in strength and in unity, right? So we stick together, and we hope that other people start to learn more about our communities in positive ways rather than negative ways. So with that being said, I want to thank you both so much for participating. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your experience as Latinx students here at GCC. For all the people who are attending, please make sure to fill out the post-event survey. It's been posted in the chat. And with that being said, thank you again and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Priscilla.